you begin this 6-game, 4-week road stretch. How does that change how you prepare, if at all? Do you want your players thinking differently when they're on the road as compared to when they're at home?
Well, I think it comes at a good time. You looked at our schedule. Obviously, we don't, other than our non-conference games, the league puts the schedule together. So obviously, you wanted to get off to a good start, which we've been able to do, and now it's an opportunity to go on the road and continue to build on some of the habits that we're working on right now. And obviously, both places, these next 2 weekends, presents challenges, but it's more about what we're doing and what we're capable of doing, and trying to, strengthen those areas that we need to continue to work on. And, we'll start that today in practice. And by the end of those 6 games, especially after the last 2 down in Ohio State, then as a coaching staff, we can reflect and look at, our first, 12, 14 games and say, here's where we're at, where do we need to go to, and what are the things that we need to improve on. And that's the great thing about games, and especially games on the road. So, these next 4, you get an opportunity to evaluate your team under those settings. And obviously St. Cloud's playing real well right now, and, had a big win last weekend out at Northeastern, and so they'll be confident. It's a bigger ice sheet, presents different scenarios. And so all those things, and when you're playing those games, you find out about yourself. And that's the whole gist of trying to get to where at the end of the season you found out about yourself and you're playing real well.
Two-parter. One, how's KK? And then 2, when you don't have her, obviously she's extremely talented, but how does that affect how you play defensively, just how you play in general when you don't have her available?
Well, it'd be sort of the scenario if the Bulls were playing and Jordan wasn't available, what would it look like? Well, it'd probably look a little different, and so we'll look a little different with her not in the lineup. And so similar to what we did Saturday, it's, what do we have? Let's put defensive pairs together. Let's put lines together, and we got to go play. Obviously, she's an elite player and one of the best players in the country, and if she's not playing, we're a little bit different, but that doesn't mean we can't go out and play. And so other people have to pick up ice time and put people on power plays and kill penalties, and certainly they gain experience by doing that, and they showcased Saturday that we're able to do that. Now we have to do it in our next 4 games on the road.
And along those lines, Anna was Defender of the Week in the conference. What do you recall seeing of her that really popped out last weekend?
Well, with her, as we've talked with her, and in the back of our minds, know that every game that she plays after missing an entire season, she'll continue to get stronger and play better and be more comfortable with what she had to go through. So now we're 8 games into the season, and she's playing better today than she was down at Lindenwood, just because she's getting ice time, she's getting experience, she's getting that competition where, in practice it can be one level of competition, but when you go into the games it's a different level. So she'll continue to improve and continue to get better just because she's playing more games now, and her confidence will start to go up as she gets more comfortable in her surroundings.
Britta's had a stretch of goal scoring that is up there with anyone in your history here. But she's also, in addition to being your leading scorer, she's had more blocks than anyone else on the team. I wonder does that speak to how complete of a player she's been so far, that she's not only doing what she needs to do on one end of the ice, she's playing pretty well on the other too.
Yeah, she's become a real complete 200-foot player, like we like to talk about, whether it's our wingers or our centers. She's willing to do what's, some other people might not be willing to do, and especially in our own end. And so whether she's out killing a penalty or 5-on-5, and her point, her responsibility has the puck, she's going to do what she can. And we've seen that, for a long time. And, maybe the normal viewer might not see some of the stats that she has, but I'm excited for her. She puts a lot of time and energy into it, and she's getting some of those rewards of the commitment she's put into her game. Talking to her, probably a month ago, and her skating so much better than it was her freshman year. We have to go back, in time and visualize what she looked like as a freshman. But the exciting part for us as coaches is that when they put that time in and they commit themselves, it's not like overnight they're going to get better, but if you do it for a period of time, whether that's a year or 2 years or 3 years, and you get this opportunity to play, another year of college hockey, and she's grown, she'll get a chance in a couple weeks to play in a rivalry series, and some of the things that you've seen now, we've seen too, and so hopefully at that next outing with the rivalry, they'll see the same thing because she's a good player and she does things the right way and she doesn't cheat the game. So I'm glad she's off to a good start, and hopefully she'll continue to do the things she's done up to this point the rest of the season.
Yeah, Coach, with 4 of the next 5 teams you play being ranked, what do you want to see from your team this weekend heading into that really, really tough stretch?
Well, we'll work on a couple things today that we need to clean up, and things that in the next 4 or 5 weekends will be challenged, and obviously some of the things in our own end we have to clean up, and we haven't had to play a ton in our own end, but as we get into that competition that you talk about, we're going to be forced to be in those spaces, and so we just have to clean up a couple things, work on a couple things, and get people's mindset in. But I know as a former player, when you play top-ranked teams, you probably get a little bit more excited as you prepare for those games, just because you know what you're going to be going up against. And so as we go down to Ohio State and we get Minnesota, I mean, those games, from a coaching standpoint with your team, they're going to get excited to play in. And so sometimes you almost have to control that energy. But I'm excited to go through this next month this season, until we get to Christmas time, because at Christmas time we can reflect back on some of the things that we do real well and some of the things that we need to continue to clean up and continue to build, because we're still a fairly young team. And then again, the parts of the game that we can't control with injuries and who's available and when people are going to be available, that's all part of that puzzle. So it's this puzzle that you continue to shift and move pieces around, and by February, maybe the middle of February, is that puzzle almost whole? And if it is, then you're probably in a pretty good space.
Britta is wearing the C. There isn't anyone I've seen with an A on their jersey. Is that a conscious decision this season, or is that?
Yep.
And can you explain why that was done?
I mean, as you know, you've been around long. I've done a lot of things differently, and we get input from the players, and then it usually paints a picture or tells a story, and from that, you decide on what you're going to do. But I was watching what Deion Sanders did with his son, and he's got L's and he's got different things, and so you're always looking for something to change. But our feelings this year was like, we're going to have Britt as a captain, and then we're going to have 5 or 6 players that we utilize over the course of the winter, to have a leadership group. So we've met with them a couple times already, and we'll talk about different things. We'll talk about the locker room. We'll talk about pieces of the game. We'll talk about life and what's important in where we're at as a team. And so, so I'm pretty comfortable. I've had 2 captains before. One year I had, I think, 5 or 6 assistant captains, and all the other coaches in the league were making fun of me. They wanted, why did you just give everybody an A? So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and we just felt strongly that this would be a pretty good space to be in from that standpoint. And, and if there's big issues or other issues going on, that we have a group that we can talk to that, has different classes in it. So, yeah.